Come sit with me. We need to talk about this. Someone told you today, or last week, or in that argument you keep turning over in your head, you're too sensitive. Maybe it came with a sigh. Maybe it came with a smile, the kind that makes you feel like you're supposed to apologize. Maybe it came quiet, tired sounding, like they had explained this to you before and you still weren't getting it. And here's the thing. Before they said that, you had said something. You named something. You said, that hurt, or that comment wasn't okay, or I need you to hear me on this. You brought something real into the room. You used real words. And instead of those words being met with anything, curiosity, an apology, even just a pause, the conversation pivoted. Suddenly it wasn't about the thing you named. It was about you. About how you name things, about how you feel things, about the particular way you, specifically, seem to feel them too much. And something happened in your chest in that moment. Not just the original hurt, that was still there. Now you were also defending the original hurt, proving it, justifying it. You were doing two jobs at the same time, and they were doing neither one. I want to give you a name for what just happened to you. And I want to give you something you can actually say, not to win, but to stay in your own truth. There is a term in my field for the specific move where a person responds to being named as the source of harm by making the naming itself the problem. The framework is called DARVO: deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. Psychologist Jennifer Freyd documented it first in the context of trauma and abuse, and it is robust. It's been studied, it's been replicated, and it shows up in relationship conflicts of all sizes, from the catastrophic to the everyday. But here's what I want you to hold on to instead of the acronym. It's a move that turns what they did into a conversation about how you reacted. That is what happened. You named a harm, and they picked up the naming and made it the problem. Now the conversation isn't about what they said or did. It is about the kind of person you are, the kind who says things, the kind who feels things, the kind who, apparently, feels them wrong. Let me say that one more time, because I need it in your body, not just your head. It's a move that turns what they did into a conversation about how you reacted. You're too sensitive is not a diagnosis of your emotional state. It is a redirect. It is someone saying, I do not want to be in the conversation you are trying to have, and the fastest way out is to make you the subject of it instead. If they can get you defending your sensitivity, they never have to address what they did. And if no one ever told you that, if you've spent years wondering whether you really are too much, too emotional, too easily wounded, then that redirect is going to work every time. Because you will already believe the jury is out on you. You with me? Good. Stay with me. Now I want to tell you what's happening in the person on the other side. Not to excuse it. I am not going to excuse it. But understanding the mechanism is what protects you from getting pulled into a conversation you cannot win. When you name what they did, when you bring the thing into the room, clearly, with words, something happens in them before they can even think about it. Their nervous system reads it as a threat, not a conversation, a threat. Something in them registers, I am being accused. Something is being required of me. And one of the fastest ways a nervous system handles that kind of feeling is to put the problem somewhere else. Redirect it. Hand it back. Wrap it in language about your feelings so that they don't have to carry it anymore. In my experience, after 14 years of sitting with people in this work, the ones who reach for "you're too sensitive" the fastest are people who grew up in homes where naming a problem was itself treated as the offense. Not the thing that was wrong, the naming of it. Where, "why are you making a big deal out of this?" was the household response to pain. where peace was maintained by everyone agreeing not to see what was in the room. They learned very early that bringing hurt into the room makes things worse. So now, when you bring hurt into the room, they have one answer, one fast answer. That answer is, it's your fault for looking. But here is where I have to be specific, because some of you watching this aren't just dealing with a person who's uncomfortable with conflict. Some of you named something about race. You were in a meeting or at dinner, and someone said something, a comment about you being so articulate, a joke about your hair. "Where are you really from?" asked with a smile, said like a compliment, said like they had done you a favor by noticing you. And you named it, maybe carefully, maybe very quietly. Maybe you had been sitting with it for a week before you said anything at all. And what you got back was, "You're too sensitive. I didn't mean it like that. You're always making it about race." I want you to understand what "you're too sensitive" is doing in that moment. It's not just dismissing what you felt, it's dismissing what you saw. It is telling you that not only is your emotional reaction wrong, your perception itself is wrong. Your racial perception is wrong. And that second layer lands on a body that is already exhausted from spending every day in rooms where the standard response to anything you notice is, "You're imagining it. You're being too much. You're reading into things." There is a name in my field for the specific tiredness that comes from that. We call it racial battle fatigue. In plain words, it is the exhaustion that comes from being watched all day in a room that wasn't built for you. Not tired from the work, tired from staying careful, tired from reading every room before you sit down, tired from deciding every single time whether this is the moment to say something or the moment to swallow it. And then, when you say something, being told you said it wrong. That is what is sitting in your chest when someone calls you too sensitive about a thing you named correctly. That is not oversensitivity. That is evidence. Evidence of a perception that is working exactly right. My grandmother would have said it like this: "A person who tells you your eyes are wrong is a person who can't afford to be seen." So what do? Two things. One is internal, one is spoken if you choose. I am not going to tell you whether to engage. That is yours to decide. What I am going to do is give you something to stand on either way. The first one is this. When someone responds to what you named with "you're too sensitive," I want one sentence running underneath everything else in you before you say a single word. My perception is accurate. Their discomfort with my perception is not my responsibility. Say it in your head. My perception is accurate. Their discomfort with my perception is not my responsibility. Not because it makes them wrong and you right in the legal sense, but because you cannot defend your own experience from a place of doubt. If you walk into the response from a place of, "Maybe I am too sensitive, let me figure out how to prove that I'm not," you've already lost the conversation. Not because you're wrong, because you've accepted their framing. You have to know your perception is accurate before you open your mouth. That knowledge is the ground you stand on. The second one is for if you choose to engage. If this person matters to you, if this is a relationship worth the conversation, if this is the moment, you say this: "I hear you. I'm not asking you to agree with how I experienced that. I'm telling you how I experienced it. Those are two different things." Say it slow, not loud, not angry, just exactly like that. What that sentence does is move the conversation off the terrain they want to fight on, which is, did this actually happen? Was it actually harmful? Was your read on it accurate? You're not asking them to rule on any of that. You are telling them what happened in your body. And a person cannot argue with your experience. They can try, but you have just declined to let your perception go on trial. What happened in you is not a debate. Now here is the diagnostic. This is the most important thing in this video, so I need you to stay right here. Watch what happens after you say that. Not whether they agree. They may not agree. Watch whether they can hold it. Whether they can stay in the room with what you just said. A person who can hear, "This is how I experienced it," even if they're uncomfortable, even if they go quiet for a moment, and stay in the conversation about your experience. That is something to work with. That is a person who may not understand yet, but who is willing to try. That is a conversation. A person who comes back with, "You're too sensitive," again, after you said, "I'm not asking you to agree, I'm telling you what I felt." That is information. Not a miscommunication, not a word problem, not a matter of finding the right phrase. That is a person who is more invested in not being the source of the harm than in understanding what the harm actually cost you. And because it's a move that turns what they did into a conversation about how you reacted, if they do it twice, in the same exchange, after you named it, you now know what you're dealing with. I cannot tell you what to do with that. You are the adult in your own life. I would not take that from you. But the information is yours now, clearly in your hands. And if you're the one who goes home and replays this in the dark, who wakes up at 2 in the morning running the conversation again, wondering whether you overreacted, whether you said it wrong, whether you should have just let it go, there's a different video for that. It's called Why You Replay Conversations at 2 a.m. Wondering If You Overreacted. Because that loop is not random. It has a root. And we're going to look at it together. Tonight, one thing. Think back to the last time someone told you that you were too sensitive. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to reconstruct it or rewrite it. Just find it. And when you find it, notice whether any part of you is still working to prove they were wrong. That part of you is working very hard. You can tell it to rest tonight. You named something real. The room may not have been ready for it. That is not the same thing as you being wrong. Take care of you. All of you. I'll be right here.